Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful day on the ranch and Testy Tuesday. Just kind of bear with me in case my chickens start going a little crazy. This is that time of day that they start kind of pecking at each other and this and that and vying for dominance. And isn't that what happened with the people that we have in Old Testament times? Especially the whole nation of Israel got divided right in two, north versus south. Each of them saying, we're better than you down there, and we're better than you up there. And oh, what a mess it was. Right after the reign of King Solomon, that's when it all went downhill fast. And there was that divide, that civil war, so to speak. And we have a series of prophets who come along now and speak to both Israel to the north, Judah to the south, and say, you guys have got to get your act together. We're to talk about one of those. And the saying that he's really known for and is quoted twice by Jesus as he's describing the Pharisaical type actions of the people of his day in Jerusalem. This is the quote. For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. Yep, Jesus quotes it twice. So who is the prophet that spoke these words on behalf of Yahweh? Was that prophet? Hopefully you get this. Was it Hosea? Was it Amos? Was it Isaiah? Was it Jeremiah? Hosea, Amos, Isaiah, Jeremiah. Well, the answer is Hosea. Yeah, and you might recall that Hosea was told to go marry a prostitute. Crazy. Marry a prostitute? Why do that? Well, and then have children by that prostitute, and then declare to the people, look how unfaithful she's being to me. That's just like you. You are unfaithful to God. He has been there. He's your husband. He brought you along, given you all that you need, and you go and you go prostituting yourselves. You go out running out after other gods, the big one being Baal. Well, here's the deal. Hosea spoke some pretty harsh words to the people. And why was he doing that? Well, when he first started doing his words, the political system was pretty messed up, and also the economic system. Israel had done pretty well for itself. It was pretty wealthy. Unfortunately, it was the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Those on the margins of society were being ignored. And that's why this word of judgment is being put against the people by God through the prophet Hosea. And the prophet Hosea, his words are the first ones that are recorded and written down and treasured by the people later on, especially after the Babylonian captivity. And why? Because we're going to learn from the past. We're not going to make those same mistakes that we did way back then. Well, what we're have happening in our passage for this Sunday, it's from Hosea, the 5th chapter, very last verse, verse 15, and then going through the first 6 verses of chapter 6. Did I say chapter 15? No, it's chapter 5, and then going through chapter 6. And as we look at that, what we see happening is there's this dialogue going on between God, through the prophet, and the people. And that dialogue goes something like this. God says, well, I've pronounced my word of judgment. You guys just aren't listening to me. You're not waking up. You're doing all the wrong stuff. You're not being faithful to me. So my judgment stands. You're going to be wiped out. The Assyrians are knocking at the door, and they're going to come in. So all the people then they say, hey, come, let us return to the Lord. For the one who has torn us and hurt us, well, he's going to help us. He's going to heal us too. Let's press on to know the Lord. Because his appearing is as sure as the dawn. He will come to us like the showers, like the spring rains that water the earth. Beautiful poetic language, right? There's only one problem. That's Baal language. That's the language straight out of the mouth of the people who worship Baal. And so Hosea's looking at him like, are you kidding me? Well, this is what God has to say. Okay, what am I going to do with you, O Ephraim? And that's another term used for the northern kingdom, all right, Israel. What am I going to do with you, O Judah? Now he's talking to them in the south as well. Your love Oh, it's like the morning cloud, all right. You know, the one that brings rain. It's like the dew that's there that waters the earth, but then it dries up, and it's gone. Your love, it's just not there anymore. This is all a game you're playing. So now I've cut you down by the prophets. Yep, I've killed you by the words of their mouths. Ah, well, he actually says my mouth, but it's the mouths of the prophets. And my judgment, it stands the way I said it. There's no getting out of it now. Because here's why. I desire steadfast love. And that's that word hesed that we see all through the Old Testament. I desire that, and not sacrifice the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. Okay, so remember that. It's not that burnt offerings are bad, or even the sacrifices for that matter, but rather than those, God would rather have what? Love. Steadfast love, chesed. He would rather have a deep, sincere knowledge of himself with the people. No more playing games in church is what he's saying. You know, all the things that you do in church, all the rituals that you go through, they're great. There's nothing wrong with them in and of themselves. But what's wrong is your hearts. And because you're just playing games with me and not straightening up, I'm sorry, judgment is coming. And unfortunately, it did in the year 722 in the form of the Assyrians, swooping down and devastating the northern kingdom. And that was not a very pleasant picture at all. The Assyrians, they were just horrible, horrible people. We don't want to talk about that, do we? Well, as I said before, Jesus quotes twice in the Gospel of Matthew from the prophet Hosea. I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, knowledge of God rather than your burnt offerings. God wants us, our genuine selves, and wants us to stop playing the ritual game, but use the rituals as an avenue to reach out to Him and to become one with Him and to know His will for our lives. What Hosea had to say to the people back then is just as relevant to you and me today. So let's listen. Let's listen to His words. Okay, God's blessings be with you on this Testy Tuesday. Hopefully you got the question right. And if you didn't, well, again, remember what I said? If you never know what to answer, always just say Isaiah. Well, but don't always say Isaiah, because that's not always the right answer. God's blessings be with you.